All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the kickoff of the XR Design Speaker Series. And this is hosted by the UCLA XRI XR Design Subcommittee. We're really excited to have you here for what promises to be an inspiring and insightful session. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker in the series, Ben Sachs. He's an arts scientist, patented inventor, and creative director with a passion for immersive storytelling. With extensive experience across XR, spatial computing, and virtual production, Ben has helped to bring award-winning projects to life. As Adobe's first dedicated augmented reality producer, he's produced projects in collaboration with organizations like NASA and Google, and have overseen brand activations for Gap, Mattel, and Ben & Jerry's. Ben and I actually both went to Wesleyan University for undergrad, and he's also no stranger to UCLA. He previously spoke on a panel here at a conference organized by the Office of Advanced Research Computing. And today he's going to take us behind the scenes of the Japantown Geospatial Project for Papertree Origami, which recently won an Augie Award for Best Location-Based Experience. He'll walk us through the production workflow and share a demo of Adobe Aero, Adobe's AR prototyping tool. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Ben. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thanks so much. Let me go ahead and get my presentation up, and we'll dive in.
Great.
Okay. One sec. Okay. Everybody see it okay? We're good? Great. So I'm calling this talk Design for Place, Building Immersive Experiences from Concept to Creation. So just to give you a bit of an agenda of the overall take for today, I'll do a little introduction to me, some of the work I've done in the past. Then we'll dive into Papertree, the origami project. I'll go into a bit of our production workflow, how it worked, what tools we used, and then I'll give a general overview of tools in the XR space that probably you all as XR creators might be interested in starting to explore. I'm not sure your level of experience yet with some of these tools, so I might be saying things you already know, but bear with me. And then after that, we'll dive into Aero. I'll give you a quick authoring demo of what a geospatial experience looks like coming together from beginning to end, all the way from initiation to publishing. So first about me, I'm Ben Sachs. I started my career as a filmmaker and a creative director. I did a bunch of work for small agencies, working for brands like Taschen and IBM. And a lot of my work in XR began back in 2013. I was invited to the Institute of Creative Technologies at USC and got to try the Oculus DK2 for the first time. And the minute I touched it, I was like, this is where I need to be. And so since then, I've been exploring different ways to use XR as an extension of storytelling, and in a particular focus on how to use XR as a way to explore place. The idea of like, how do we tell stories that are context specific and driven by a location? Because I think that's one of those things that only things like XR or augmented reality can enable. So my projects really began first with Perceptoscope. I started this project back in late 2013, early 2014, and the idea was to build a coin-operated binocular style viewer for augmented reality experiences. And I went through about 6 prototypes building it out. And what's great about the way we approached this take on XR was this was 2014 when I first debuted it at the Steam Carnival with 2-Bit Circus. And we were doing full stereoscopic see-through augmented reality in a public way where people could use it. And back then this was before HoloLens had probably even been announced. And so what I was really trying to do was find a way to tap into the potentials of XR while taking away some of the limitations that were put onto it by having to be either a wearable or a mobile device. So how do we give something that's full experience of AR without any of the burdens of trying to make it microscopic and battery powered? And so this is an example of a project that I did at La Brea Tar Pits, where we used Perceptoscope viewers to recreate some of the Ice Age animals that roamed the land there. And we had it out for about a week where kids could come out, parents could come out, teachers, anyone really could come out and use it, experience it. And what we found from doing this style of work and bringing this type of viewer into a public space is that For one, this was probably many people's first touch point with stereoscopic AR. It's something that a lot of people hadn't experienced yet. But also the idea of a device that is so familiar meant that from a user onboarding perspective, it was really straightforward. Like people know how to use a coin-operated binocular. And so being able to walk up, look through it, get that surprise of, oh my God, there's something 3D in this space that's not actually there, uh, drew crowds, brought lots of people together. It was a very exciting activation. And we had, I guess it was nearly 80% of the time it was out at La Brea Tar Pits, people were using it. So from a museum activation perspective, it was incredibly effective. And so that was my life up until about 2020. And as you can imagine, putting things in public spaces during COVID was challenging. And so I kind of took a step back from Perceptoscope for a bit and found my way to eventually working at Adobe as an augmented reality producer. And so let me show you a bit about the projects we did there. This is a project for Ben and Jerry's that I produced called Woody's Super Sundae Maker. This was a project done in Adobe Aero. And the goal of the project, there was multiple goals. One was to show off the performance of the Aero engine, really show how complicated we can create an experience, the type of resolution we can bring to an experience like this. And then also work with a brand to show them how they could create a brand specific activation using augmented reality that would engage their customers. So Ben and Jerry's had a product called their Sundays line, which was a layered product, so different layers of ice cream and whipped cream and toppings inside the pint. And the idea in the game was it was a Rube Goldberg style puzzle game where you would go around and make sure the machine worked. And if you did, the machine would play out and stack up the layers of the ice cream. And it was a really awesome experiment. It was really high performance, and certainly you can see just from the video, the detail was pretty great for an augmented reality experience. And I can talk to you about some of the tips and tricks we had to getting it to look that good later when we get to questions and answers. The next project I did was that I thought would be relevant for this talk was with Gensler. Which is one of the largest architecture firms. We wanted to figure out a way to use Aero in a really pragmatic way for people that we were trying to pitch geospatial buildings essentially. So Dignity Moves is an organization in California that helps take empty plots of land that they do not have any way of getting utilized quickly, and then doing rapid deployment of public housing on it using these modular housing units. And so what we wanted to do was create an AR experience that Dignity Moves and Gensler could take to stakeholders and say, look, here is how you can build a site really quickly and plan it out using augmented reality. And so not only was it a great way to get, just to pre-visualize what was going to go there, but it really became a tool that Dignity Moves and Gensler could use as they were building partnerships. And then finally, this was a project I did for NASA. This was for the Europa Clipper project. Europa Clipper is a probe that's being sent to Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter. It is what's really cool about Europa and what's really exciting to me about it is it's an ice moon with a water ocean underneath. And there's a lot of speculation that there's potential for life under the ice. And so the Clipper mission is a really exciting mission that I think just recently launched by NASA. And what we did was we collaborated with them to create an interactive story experience where you could explore the Europa Clipper and all of its instruments and what they did, as well as Europa itself and see more into the planet, or sorry, into the moon. And one of the things that I got really hung up on when we were building this project was to think about how do we use NASA assets as the starting point for this project. So as you can see up top, we use original NASA source imagery and then pulled it into Adobe Substance to actually create textures for the Europa model from these NASA raw assets. And we were able to produce really high quality looking 3D models using raw scientific data, which was a huge, huge win, I think, in terms of just showing what an overall workflow can be for 3D tools and science. And then on the bottom, you can see a little bit, bottom left, you can see a little bit about the different layers to Europa, the water ocean, and then the hot molten core. So so those are just a few examples of some projects I produced at Adobe. There's been a lot of other projects I've done there as well, and it was a really wonderful experience to be able to work in collaboration with some great organizations, have the power of Adobe behind us to put together some just kind of world-class AR projects. And that kind of led to this next one, which is Papertree. So Papertree is an origami shop in downtown San Francisco in Japantown, and it's been family owned for generations. And what we wanted to do was help develop an AR project that would be a way for small businesses to engage with their community using XR, using AR. And we also wanted to prototype what it would be like for a small XR agency to work with a local business to put together a project that could start to build an ecosystem for this type of work in a more common sort of way, in the same way that there are video production companies that do commercial video production work for small businesses. We want to see that whole ecosystem develop around AR that allows AR creation to be a part of everyday design organizations' businesses. So in addition to just being that, one of the things that I've always been passionate about is kind of the relationship between AR and public space and AR and art. And so to me, I kind of snuck this in as, in a way, this is really a public art project, and one that engages culturally in a relevant way with a really important and interesting part of San Francisco history. So best way to show it from here is for me to play this little video that Adobe made, and then I'll move on from there. So let's see how this goes.
Origami has been a part of my life since I was little. The magic of actually creating something with just using your hands and a simple sheet of paper just never gets old for me. It's always been around my house. I've been doing it for all my life. What the 3D AR experience brings to origami is a whole new perspective of how you see origami, a different way to look at origami. I grew up here in Japantown, just a half a block away from the store. Papertree started in 1968. We've been a part of Japantown for 4 generations now. My grandpa also wrote 2 of the first books written in English on origami. It was his wish to share something of Japanese culture. He thought origami was the perfect vehicle to do that. And it's great to have that type of family history with origami. When I took over Papertree, I wanted to create a destination store. This AR 3D experience, it's a great way to kind of showcase origami in a fun way and interactive way. As a business owner trying to figure out new ways to develop your business and really grow your business, you got to pay attention to what's happening, what the times are doing and what people are doing.
Folks are noticing Japantown, and I keep telling everyone we have to be a spot on the map. There's got to be a hook. And I think this Adobe 3D experience is going to be an important hook and really bring Japantown to a platform that no one else has seen before.
My friends are really into it. I showed them the AR experience when they came maybe about a week ago, and they were super excited to do something that was like more interactive and less about shopping and dining. It was something different.
It's really nice seeing my culture celebrated in a town. Just being able to see these creations fly around or just pop up everywhere in Japantown, it's really cool.
One of the most amazing things about this experience is bringing something traditional, origami, into the future and connecting with the current generation. It reaches a whole new audience. It's the next level for origami. The developers used the Google Geospatial Creator to make this experience happen right outside my door, right in front, and they weren't even here, they did this remotely.
This kind of experience is going to really show that, hey, we're part of that cutting edge. That will attract other companies to say, we should be in Japantown too. And it shows by the foot traffic that we have today.
I think Grandpa would be very, very proud and surprised at the legacy that he's given me. He'd be pretty blown away, I think. I feel very lucky and very fortunate to be able to carry on a legacy like origami.
So what was the idea, right? Like why did we get this project going? One of the things that I'd been really exploring, especially for Aero, which was a tool that primarily was being used by 2D artists and illustrators to put their work into AR, was this transition between 2D and 3D, right? And origami is the original version of that. Origami is this thing where you take a 2D object and you make it into a 3D object. And so for me, thematically, I was just so excited to make origami the focus of this project. one of the other things that I'm deeply passionate about when it comes to creating immersive experiences is to start with source material that exists in the real world. So rather than just being like, hey, we're going to model something and then we're going to put that animation into AR, what I want to do is think about ways to work with real life objects, real life textures, and then recontextualize them into the space. And so what we did was we actually did photogrammetry captures of a bunch of Linda's work, Linda Mahara, the artist there, and use those 3D captures through photogrammetry as our base models for when we created this experience. So most of the origami that you see in that experience is hand-folded origami that was 3D captured. We also then used paper textures that we captured from her store itself. So going into the store and taking photos of the paper textures, and we're then able to use those as actual textures on the models as well. And so this really was about how do we think full-fledged, starting with the real world, using digital tools and creating something new from it. The other thing that I loved about the idea of working with origami is it's so small and delicate, but once you scan it and then you put it into that 3D space, you can play with scale in a way that you could never imagine an origami object existing at. So for example, this is the Peace Sphere, which is one of the coolest pieces of origami ever that Linda designed. It's actually 18 cranes in a sphere that's folded from one single sheet of paper. So she's just a master origami artist. Um, and so by taking something so small and delicate and then being able to put it on top of her building, we were able to give it a whole new meaning. And then from there, the Peace Sphere crane on activation actually breaks apart, and then all the cranes fly apart, fly around the entire Japantown Plaza, and then come back together into the sphere. So that was our big kind of main focus of the experience, and it worked great. And so one of the other things about this project that I really liked was being able to connect the local community and its artists together, and in particular, just to give a voice to the artists on these projects. So when we first developed this project, uh, we pulled Linda in as part of the creative team. So, originally we came to her and we're like, hey, we want to create an AR experience for you. You're cool with that? And as we started to get to know her more, we were like, no, you're part of this team now. You are part of the creative team on this. And so we pulled her in. And then the other thing that's really awesome about it is this is a really great example of a geospatial AR experience. Geospatial AR is still a very emerging field. And so this was part of a series of projects that we at Adobe did in collaboration with Google around their geospatial creator tool, which is built on all of their brilliant work with Google Maps and things like that to make geospatial authoring for AR experiences straightforward. So from there, the thing about creating an experience like this is it's not just one hero asset, right? You really have to think about all the different elements that go into the experience right from the beginning to the end. And so there was a lot of development. We worked with an agency called Rock Paper Reality, who are an incredible XR agency, to really think through the entire experience. And so they developed all sorts of branded UI, custom 2D graphics, workflows, and really thought about the UX of this so that it wasn't just you go and experience something, but you go and you're guided through an experience and you get somewhere. And ideally, the goal is to kind of land people towards the Papertree store and encourage them to come inside. So you're getting that kind of call to action of, hey, you have this amazing experience in the plaza. Now come learn about origami, learn how to create origami. And here's some examples of some of the 3D assets. You can see this dragon asset on the right is incredibly detailed, incredibly complex, and again, started as a paper object. That was not something that was modeled in a computer. That was completely captured in 3D using photogrammetry tools. The texturing was obviously done in a computer, and a lot of the assembly was done by mixing different origami elements together to create these little kind of vignettes. There were elements that were also created using traditional modeling tools, especially for UI and UX type stuff. But for the most part, the big hero assets were all handmade origami. So I wanted to kind of just go over basically, what does a project like this mean when you're building a project like this? Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of when you're building a project like this, there's a bunch of different steps that go into it, right? Like you can think of it as, oh, I know how to use the tools and create an AR experience, but even before then, you really have to get into that pre-production mode. So I kind of thought of as pre-production as first you gather your team, right? So we found Rock Paper Reality as this agency that was excellent at XR work. They actually were the ones that did the Ben and Jerry's project with us originally. And then also we had a team at Adobe of amazing creative directors and designers who were there to go on site and do some location scouting for us, do the photogrammetry captures for us, and then process those into 3D objects using the Substance suite of tools. Then once you get there, you get everybody together and you start having these creative ideation meetings and really start to think about what's the story, what's the user flow. And that's where we kind of came up with the idea of, oh, wow, this paper crane that you created, Linda, is incredible. This is the hero. This is what we're going to build from. And you do all that materials collection, you get all of your assets together, you try to just get as much as you can, even before you know what you're going to make. The more you can get all together at the beginning first, and you can whittle it down into an experience, the stronger it'll be in the end. And then once you get into production, there's a lot that's going on, right? So you have your asset generation of creating your 3D models that you might not have already captured through photogrammetry, working in the animations, rigging and animating the objects that you either captured or modeled. You have to add all your interactivity, all your behaviors, all that UX engine-y stuff. You need to add that as well. And then also you need to think about the other elements of the experience. Are there going to be sound effects? Is there going to be music? Is there going to be motion graphics or video that gets integrated into it? So that's really where that stuff gets focused on, is during production. And then once you get into the deployment section, that's when it really becomes time to thinking about your on-site playtesting. So, actually getting out there and putting it into the world, trying it out a little bit. Then your formal launch. How are you going to launch it in a way where people actually see it? Because the challenge with AR, and this is a lot of what I was focused on with Perceptoscope, is how do you even let people know there's a geospatial experience at a location, right? Like, you could walk up and there could be an incredible AR geospatial experience at a location you go to every day. And unless you figure out a way to actually get that in front of people's eyes, they might miss it. So, I mean, for something like Perceptoscope, we're a big physical object. It's easy to see. But for an experience like this, what we wanted to do was tie a formal launch to a festival that was already happening at Japantown. And then we put QR codes that actually launched the experience all over the plaza so people could scan it and launch it. From there, you also need to think, as you're doing these projects, what are your data collection considerations? Like, it's one thing to put a project out into the world, but if you don't have the data to back up how well it did, it's that much harder than to make the next one. And so what we wanted to do was get a lot of metrics, both qualitative and quantitative, and get a sense of how were people responding. And it went really well. And then finally, one thing that's so easy to forget, but is incredibly important when you're doing an XR project, is document it. Make sure you go out there and capture video, photos, talk to people, get people on camera talking about it, create that documentation. Because what we've found in this space is actually the most people end up experiencing these XR projects as a video and social media, especially for these geospatial projects that require you to be on site. A lot of people aren't going to have the opportunity to try it. But if you can create all of those additional collateral assets that show off what you made and get those out there, they'll do a huge amount for bringing attention to your work and helping you get your next project going. So I wanted to show a quick video. This is from Rock Paper Reality, just working on the overall workflow that we used to create the project. So let me just get that going. Oop, here. So now that we've kind of seen that experience, how it all came together, I thought I would just kind of give a brief overview of the tools that are being used these days for XR. So not just the tools that we use in this project, but just the tools in general. And this is in no way a demonstrative list. This is just the tools that I think are seeming to show up a lot, and that I think for all of you that might be starting to explore designing for XR more, the types of tools that are useful for you. So firstly, for photogrammetry, which is something that obviously I'm really passionate about, um, things like Polycam are a great place to start. It is an app. It is not expensive. It might even be free. And it's a great way for you to start creating 3D models on your phone that then you can use for creating projects. There's other tools that are much more powerful desktop tools, Reality Capture, for example. Niantic also has Scaniverse, which is an app on your phone, and then also Substance as well has photogrammetry. But there's a lot of other tools for photogrammetry that exists out there. There's also a lot of new innovations happening in the photogrammetry space, particularly around a technology called Gaussian splats. And the idea there is, and we can talk about that maybe even during the question and answer session, but it's a way to create incredibly photorealistic looking 3D models that you can kind of weave your way through really quickly and easily, that are very performant. And it's a really exciting tool that's starting to become kind of the future of 3D capture. And then obviously for modeling, animation, UX, Maya is kind of the standard. I'm sure many of you have already used it. I'd also really encourage everyone here to start playing with Blender if you haven't yet. Blender is a completely open source 3D modeling tool, and it is incredibly powerful, incredibly great community. And I don't know if you all saw Flow, which was the movie that won Best Animated Film at the Oscars this year, but it was actually made it entirely in Blender and rendered in their real-time engine. So it was a huge win for the open source 3D community to have this amazingly cool, small indie animated movie win Best Animated Film. And then also, tools like Dimension and After Effects, those are also great tools for starting to build out UX. I mean, a lot of the work that you can do for motion graphics, especially in something like After Effects, are very applicable to working in XR. I mean, XR is really cool because as a medium, it really combines every other medium. It combines video, it combines interactive, it combines 3D and sound, and it just, every tool you can throw at it, you can throw at an XR project. And then for engines and SDKs, I just kind of wanted to go over a few of the engines that you might be exposed to already. So Unity is probably the default standard you're going to see a lot of projects made in these days. It's a great tool. It works across every device, which is what's so nice about it. And yeah, it's become an engine of choice for a lot of XR work. Unreal Engine also equally great. It is much better at things that are, visually stunning. But at the same time, it's a little more complicated to work with. Unity is much more straightforward. And then we have tools like Arrow, which are designed to be end-to-end workflow tools with their own rendering engines. So in Arrow, you can go and author your experience, publish it, and then run it on the device. It's all one app. And that's kind of the cool thing about Arrow. But in terms of the complexity of the experiences you can build and the interactivity, it's not nearly as versatile or open as something like Unity or Unreal, because Arrow is a completely code-free program. So the beauty is you don't need to know how to code, but also you don't have the ability to code if you need to. So that's a problem. The other tools I would really encourage everybody to get into, because I just think this is the future of XR, are the WebXR tools. So WebXR is basically an open standard for XR that allows you to have interactive XR experiences, VR and AR, through your mobile phone browser, through your computer browser. We actually built Perceptoscope to be entirely built on WebXR, so it can be really fully open source from front to back. And that's really, if you're a web developer already, it's great because it's already an extension of a lot of things you might have worked with. Three.js and Babylon.js are both great real-time 3D game engines inside JavaScript that are really, really amazing these days. And then if you're wanting to just get started with something simple, A-Frame is a tool that Mozilla built that's you can build XR experiences in the same way you can code what's essentially an HTML. So if you're used to ever making websites back in the 90s or the early noughts, like just being able to create an experience entirely with HTML-like blocks is really fun. And then once you get your engine selected, if you're using a real-time engine like Unity or Unreal, you then need to take that next step and say, okay, well, what's the SDK for the AR work that we're going to take advantage of? In the case of if it's an Apple device, you're typically using ARKit. If it's a Google device, you're using AR Core. And the nice thing is AR Core has those extensions for geospatial. And then there's also things like Niantic's SDK, which gives you geospatial and AR. And there's a number of other great ones, Vuforia from Qualcomm, things like that. But those are all great engines to start with and kind of mix and match your favorite combination of tools to create your XR experience. And so with that, I can go into a demo of Aero, but before I do, I just wanted to take a second and see if anybody had any questions before I do that. And if not, I'll just dive in.
It looks like there is one question in the chat. John said, is Substance included in CC? I installed with trial and purchase is grayed out.
Yeah, Substance is its own subscription, unfortunately. So you'll have to get your own subscription for that. But I will
How
say
long is my trial gonna last?
I no longer am at Adobe, so I won't speak to that.
Oh, okay, okay.
But there
Thank
are
you.
other
Yeah.
ways, yeah, there are other ways to get Substance. You can also get Substance through Steam if you're looking for like a buy it once situation instead of a subscription situation. You can just purchase it through Steam. It has a few less features than the Creative Cloud subscription based one, but a lot of people use the Steam version too.
And it looks like Arrow is in beta, so it'll be free while it's in beta.
Arrow is free while it's in beta, and from what I know, it's in beta for a while. So I think, and I would encourage everyone to play around with Arrow while it's free and in beta. Might not be what you want to use for your actual production work, but for prototyping and testing and trying things out, it's a great tool. Any analytics? Yeah, so in terms of questions on analytics, I don't have any of the analytics on me right now for that stuff. We had ways at Adobe of tracking those things, but a lot of that stuff wasn't quite exposed yet to the end user. We were developing a lot of those tools back then as well. So, but yes, getting those metrics, understanding how many times something is opened, that's a huge part of understanding what you're building. So. All right, why don't I take a minute and we'll dive into Arrow, and then from there we can kind of keep discussing what else we want to. So hold on one sec, let me just pull it up. Let's do this. All right. Can everybody see Arrow okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is your kind of when you first open Arrow, this is what comes up when you ask for a new project. So I'm just going to call this UCLA demo. When you're creating an AR experience, there's a lot of different types of AR experiences. You can choose what type you want to create here. So a surface anchorer would be something where it looks for something like a floor or a vertical surface, a wall, and then you can tap to place whatever your 3D experience is at that location. So that can be really useful for things like demoing, furniture you want to see in a space, or for experiences you want people to be able to do just in front of them anywhere they are. Image anchors are the ability to create an AR experience that's tied to a physical image that tracks. So imagine something like, a QR code or a picture on a piece of paper. The 3D object would then attach itself to that piece of paper, and you can lift it up and move it around, and it helps you manipulate things. So for certain types of 3D models where you're wanting to give people the ability to not have to move around a lot to explore it, but rather move the object itself, it's a really compelling way to do that. And then location anchors, that is what I'm passionate about, which is to say geospatial, and really very new features in a lot of these SDKs. There is also the Geospatial Creator SDK that we integrated into Arrow, is also available for Unity. So if you're a Unity developer, that's a great way to get started if you want to do some Unity experiences with geospatial. So we'll go ahead and create a location anchor. This will bring up the map menu. Can everybody see the map okay?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, great. So we're going to put in UCLA Royce Hall. That'll load the 3D map of the location. So let's say we do this courtyard right here. I'm going to select it. Now Arrow is going to load up the 3D tiles of that from Google. And as you can see, we've now got a fully 3D map. Add stuff to, right? So like I said, Arrow is a tool that's great because it doesn't involve any sort of complex coding. It's all based on an interaction behavior tree. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add an object to this space. So let's see. I always like adding, let's see, this little balloon guy is kind of cool. So we just put him into this space. You can see I'm going to have to zoom in really far. So there's the little boy, and he is about the size you'd expect a little boy to be in real life. But in AR, we don't want to do that. We want to make something a little bit more fun. So we're going to go down to scale. I'm going to make it 10. So now we've got a nice size to look at. Whoop, sorry. Of our AR little boy. And so we've put him in front of Royce Hall. Now, if we want him to do something, we go into the behaviors, which is down here on the lower left. And we can add a trigger. So we'll have it that on start of the experience, it'll play its animation. And then we'll choose the animation. You can actually preview it here. Kind of loses its balloon, jumps after it. Grabs it. And we'll make sure that that animation loops infinitely. And it's set to play on start. So now if I go to preview, we'll just see the whole experience as if you were to open it up. All right, so we have an experience. It's cool. We got a little guy in a balloon. He's jumping around. How do we get that out to people, right? In Arrow, it's really easy. You just hit share. And we're going to create a link. And right now, this is going to sync the project to the cloud. Fingers crossed it works. And what it'll do is it'll generate a QR code. So if you're on location there, you'll be able to load up that QR code, and it will automatically open up an app clip of the experience. You don't even need to download Arrow. And there you go. So I'll go ahead and copy that. And but yeah, if anybody later wants to try it at Royce Hall, I can either send the QR code out. I'll save this to my desktop. And yeah, so it's as simple as that. So Arrow is a great tool for demoing, prototyping, trying out things. And I will copy this URL and put it into the chat as well, so that people can give it a shot if they want to later today. So here's the link. And with that, I'm happy to dive more into things you can do in Arrow, or if anybody has any questions, maybe we just open it up for that type of stuff.
And John, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, is that 3D model from Google Earth, is that cached locally on your machine, or is that really dependent on an internet connection?
It will need to download it from the internet. So, but I mean, it will sit cached on your computer when you're using it, obviously.
Okay. And then can you open that Google model in other tools then? Can you open that in like in Blender then?
Yeah, there are ways. It is not supported in Arrow. There's lots of reasons, for legal reasons, why you can't get access to those directly. But there are ways that I know of where people have been able to then, either they'll create a photogrammetry of it themselves from different views. That's a really easy way to do it if you're.
Yeah, bring your own model. Sure. Yeah, I was kind of really interested in, like, getting my hands on that Google model.
Yeah.
Yeah, how similar? I know I've used only one time. I'm no expert, everybody. I've used Esri City Engine, and it pulls or creates its 3D model from OpenStreetMap and building footprints.
Right.
How does it compare?
So we're working with the Geospatial Creator, works with Google Map data. It has a really great building occlusion. So in terms of understanding the actual front-facing surfaces of all the buildings, it's all built in. It's pretty great. And so we have full occlusion of buildings and things whenever you create your experience. But it's similar for sure to OpenStreetMaps. I don't, does OpenStreetMaps have 3D or is it just it's 2D?
City Engine extrudes the buildings from footprints. So the building height is part of the
Yeah.
part of the building footprint. Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be actual data from the facades, essentially, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With the
photogrammetric data from
skins pasted over them.
the
Yeah, that's
skins with the
lovely.
actual
Yeah.
geometries. And Google has also introduced an immersive view in Google Maps that uses the same backend to let you do that type of 3D exploration inside Google Maps too. I see a question about when the user scans the QR code, does it open up in the web browser? Typically, it uses, yes, it will. The experience itself does not open up in the web browser. So the way it works is it might go to your browser first for a second and then instantiate an app clip, which is if you don't have Arrow installed, um, App Clip is a feature inside iOS that gives you a micro-sized app of our engine and then allows the experience to load from there. Google has a similar technology called Instant App that also Arrow does. So the idea is you don't need to install an app, you just need to scan a QR code and then you get a native engine running the experience. So you get that performance that a WebXR experience wouldn't be able to have. Any other questions or anything else I can elaborate on, or just here to kind of inform?
It was it was amazing to see the impact of your project. If you wanted to describe also what it was like to win the award for it, that would.
Oh, I mean, I wasn't at the Augies when it happened. Thankfully, the Rock Paper Reality folks were. But it was, I mean, it's wonderful. I've been working in the XR space for a really long time, and it's nice to get recognized for your work, especially, I mean, uh, the Paper Tree project was very much a passion project. It came together very quickly. I was throwing together any resource I could at it to make it happen. So it was great to see something that I was really passionate about and believed in. Because I love doing all sorts of XR work. Like, I mean, it's fun doing brand engagements and stuff like that, but doing something that's really driven by a community and by art and public art, that's what I'm in it for. And so it was just really wonderful to have a project like that get recognized. So that was great.
Yeah, congratulations. Looks like Brent has a question. When a user scans the QR code, does it open up? Oh, actually, he already asked
Yeah, I
that.
talked about that one. And then I saw, is there a time we could get another? Yeah, I can look at let me go ahead and share the, I can share the arrow view again while we talk, just so people can see what's going on. So let me go ahead and share that again. Let's do this. All right. And then it looks like, Josh, you had a question.
Yeah, I do. And I'm hopping on a bit late here. But yeah, that looks awesome there. And I saw kind of your profile and stuff. Looks like you've worked on some really cool projects. Um, have you seen any use cases or maybe engaged with some clients that, maybe have more of a business type of use case? Just because I'm starting to see more of that now, right? Whether it's like an employee experience thing, they want to, maybe create a more immersive experience. Maybe it's a training that they're doing. Because yeah, I'm hearing kind of more about the art stuff, but would love to hear, if you've seen any traction in that area.
Sure. I mean, so one of the places mixed reality gets used a lot, particularly HoloLens, is in situations like manufacturing, where you have, you're on a production line, you have an XR headset, and it's helping you know exactly what the next step to do is as you're doing it on the production line. So that's a pretty obvious like basic use case in terms of like AR for work. I've also seen it starting to get used more and more in medicine. So, for example, if you're a doctor and you're performing a surgery, being able to overlay the CT scan of a person's tumor over their body while you're operating on it gives you that fidelity to see where it is, almost like an X-ray view. So those are the types of things I'm seeing, especially with more headset-based stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, really the opportunities are endless. And then in terms of businesses, like the Ben and Jerry's project was kind of a marketing engagement. We did an engagement with Gap and Mattel. They were launching a Barbie line during the summer of the Barbie movie, and so we took over Times Square with like a Barbie fashion show on Times Square. So there's lots of ways to use it for those types of marketing use cases for sure. And then in terms of actual just pragmatic business stuff. The other place I found AR to be super useful is when I'm pre-visualizing purchases, right? So if you're buying a piece of furniture, or in the case I bought a play set for my backyard for my kids, and there was actually an AR model of it that I was able to load before we even bought it, and I was able to see where it would lay out in my backyard in AR. And those are the types of things where I think AR is going to become so commonplace we're going to even forget it's a thing because it's just so easy to use and so practical. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing.
And then I know people wanted to hear a little bit more about Ben and Jerry's. Yeah, I'd love to hear more like what you're interested in knowing about. Whoever wanted to know more about Ben and Jerry's, like what you'd want to know.
I think you mentioned about how you got such a good finish with the assets.
Yes, yes. So we use Substance. That a lot of my work was not only just getting Aero to be kind of, shown off, but also to really show off like how does the entire Adobe suite of tools work to make great experiences for AR. And Substance is an incredible app for texturing and stuff like that. And so what we did was we used Substance to create really nice textures. And the trick, and this is a trick that you guys will probably find useful if you're building XR experiences, is bake your lighting. It's always going to look better if you bake your lighting. It might not be as accurate as doing real-time lighting in the engine, but you can get so much nicer visual by baking all the lighting before you bring your models in. Not to mention, it makes it more performant when you're actually in the experience itself, as opposed to having to rely on the engine to calculate real-time lighting. So that's the little trick I would add if you're in that space. All right, let's see. Campus tours using AR glasses. Yeah, I mean, AR glasses, there's not a lot of geospatial AR glasses yet. There's a couple out. It's starting to get there. The challenge with AR glasses in general is just you can't get full field of view easily, and they're expensive, and battery life and performance is hard for something so small. So I think it is getting there. I think we're going to see some cool stuff. Meta has a pair of glasses that looks pretty good. I'm sure all the other big companies are working on that stuff in their skunk labs. It's an interesting time for AR for sure. Let's see, the other question I see in there. Can you create geolocated point of sale or purchase offers? Yes. So inside Aero, actually, we have the ability to link out to something, like whether it's a URL you want people to go to, or it's you want to link to an app you want people to download, something like that. Aero has the ability to have a link out, and so pretty much every experience I created had a call to action at the end that would then link out to wherever you wanted your users to land. And in a lot of ways, that was the place that was the easiest to actually track the results of how effective an experience. It's easy to get the count on a website. It can be a lot more complicated to be tracking people's user data inside of XR. And so being able to say, okay, we got this many people hit the call to action link at the end of the experience and went to this website gives us a lot of great data to know how effective the overall experience was. Let's see, has there been on campus you could purchase offers? Yeah, and so, in terms of Aero for the type of like scavenger hunt experiences, unfortunately, Aero doesn't have that type of logic. It's not as extensive, but a Unity experience or something with a little bit more coding, you could probably build out those types of scavenger hunt experiences as well that are being asked about. So, cool. All right. Well, thank you all. If there's any other questions, I'm here. I'll put my email in the chat if anybody ever wants to send me an email or find me on LinkedIn. I'm always interested in hearing about cool projects people are developing for student projects. So yeah, Aero comes with free storage for the free account. You don't even need a Creative Cloud account to use Aero, which is kind of nice. So if you sign up for the beta and try it out, and again, I wouldn't necessarily rely on Aero for big production work you want to do unless you're really feeling confident in it. But if you're just looking for something to start prototyping and playing around, it's a great place to get started, and it really is absolutely free right now. But also, I would say if you really do want to get in for the long haul, start playing with WebXR. It's going to be the future, especially as Apple starts to come around and starts to support WebXR a little better than they do. I think it's going to really be the de facto standard for a lot of stuff. So.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a wonderful presentation, and we all really appreciate it. And for everyone here, If you haven't signed up to receive email updates from the group, please do so. For the XR Design Subcommittee, we'll have another speaker series in about a month from now, and looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.